All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm hoping my technical setup here works today. It will for at least a few minutes anyway. Um, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to All Things SOPPA. Today is Tuesday, July 13th of 2021. So we're 2 weeks into 2021, 2022 school year. I came across something the other day that was 2021, and it was the first time all year that I realized that like 2021 was the same as 2021, and so I got confused when I had to change something to 21, 22, and like, never mind. But it's good to see a few people here today. I'm kind of out of sorts. I only have one screen, and it's a laptop screen, so a little limited in my, and you can all feel sorry for me because I have been on the boat already this morning, been by the pool, been fishing. Didn't go fishing yet today, but that's later. But hanging out in the Lake of the Ozarks, so there's worse things I can be doing. But this is a weekly session, and we took off last week, so I wanted to make sure that we at least connected and was able to answer questions for those people that have some questions, and we can regather on Tuesday the 20th and make sure we get back into the swing of things. And before we know it, school will be starting. I didn't say that out loud, but I have a 8th grade math teacher that's up by the pool right now that if I say anything like that, she gets mad at me. So all the slides are available here. I'll put in the slide in the chat, the slide deck that's here. And then also on this page is the link to previous All Things SOPPA conversations that we've had over the last 20 weeks or so. Since February 9th, we've been doing these All Things SOPPA sessions. So hopefully you've gotten some things out of it and have accomplished most of, or at least know what you're doing as far as getting new applications and stuff like that into the database. As we go along, always on this first page is my contact information, and there's a link there for scheduling a meeting, and you can pop into my calendar either into a 15 or a 30-minute time slot, and we can have conversation or answer questions that are specific to you. And then as we go through today, if you have questions, you can use Slido, which is something that we'll use. So in the chat, I put the Slido link. So if you'll jump into Slido and use code Z972, this is what we'll use for question and answer today. So we can have a running question and answer, and ultimately you're able to vote up and vote down the questions that are there and questions that you want answered. And usually we get through most, if not all, of the questions as we go. So I just put this in here, one, to show you that over time you can get a comfort level with this. So if this is the first time you've joined us, or if you're watching this for the first time on the YouTube channel, you can see that other people that have been participating have gathered some good things in here and some knowledge through sharing and all those types of things. So the reason I want you in here is into Slido is so that you can use the question and answer that we'll use later. So thanks for sharing that. And as you can see, the questions will start to populate, and we will utilize this section to talk through questions and different things. And usually the first question that we answer is, what is SOPPA? And the main thing with SOPPA is that we have data privacy agreements with K-12 focused vendors around that collect student data student data information, personally identifiable information. So last name, first name, date of birth, kind of anything that is in a profile that pertains to a specific person. You can kind of look at that as being personal information that's collected on the student. And some of the things we're trying to accomplish is things that we've talked about for years with student privacy. And so make sure you check out the resources on this data privacy webpage to just be thinking about that this is a requirement now because of the SOPPA amendments that went into effect July 1st. But this is something we've been concerned about with data privacy for years. Right before the pandemic, I went to Washington, D.C. and went through a 3-day boot camp on training the trainers to talk about data privacy. And we were going to talk about going through terms of services on software websites and all those types of things, and knowing that they're not selling or renting our data, and in different check boxes that are in the contract or the agreement that we're sharing out with the Illinois NDPA. So the Illinois NDPA serves that purpose of knowing that they're not selling and renting the data, that they're going to delete it when they're not using it anymore, when we're not using their services anymore, what the data is actually used for, and different things like that. So make sure you're checking out what more than just the data privacy agreements, that there are a lot of things to be concerned about. And if you read through the data privacy agreement to kind of see what all the points are in the legalese part of it, they are worth doing. And as Lynette Attai from a book called About Student Data Privacy, and she speaks all around the country at different conferences, she says it's the right thing to do to protect student privacy. And at this point, we don't have to have data privacy agreements for adults, for our teachers, and all that kind of stuff. But hopefully along the line, you start thinking about those types of things too, as who has your student data, what are they doing with it, and stuff like that. So that's not a requirement by any means, but something we should probably start thinking about. So the weekly agenda is we run through some statistics. We look at the originating agreements that are posted in the database, and then we just kind of talk through a few things. And then as far as tips and ideas of things to do, and then answer some questions and whatever it is that you guys need that are on this call. So we didn't have last week's session, but I did record the data on Tuesday. So you can see those last two columns represent the last 2 weeks of information. And I think it's important that we see these things happening. And if you'd look at the right-hand side column, you see 753 districts that are have accounts in the SDPC database. Of those 753, 572 have actually executed at least an agreement. So one agreement is in the database for 572 of those districts that have accounts. So those agreements can be a one-off agreement, like with a Khan Academy, that Khan Academy has an agreement that they want you to sign and upload. So that could be how it is. The other types of agreements could be, and we'll talk a little bit about this, the originating agreement or the subscribing process by signing the Exhibit E is a way for you to sign on to an agreement that's already in the system. In total, and just looking at those numbers across the line for signed DPAs, back in February, we had 116 agreements that are in the database. Now we have over almost 18,000 agreements. And I bet by the end of the day, we actually have 18,000 agreements. And now it's probably something I'll check later just to see those numbers, because I'm kind of a numbers guy. Of those 17,000 or 18,000, let's call it 18,000. Of those 18,000 agreements, there's 1,213 of them that are in the database that are listed as originating agreements. And if you've had any experience with the database, you'll know that not all of those are true originating agreements and not something that you should sign on to. I'd say a good majority of them are, but there's a few in there that have been uploaded that definitely shouldn't be. Sign the Exhibit E. You shouldn't just click on that button to sign on to something that's in the database. You should make sure that it's something that's going to work and something that works for your district. And there's videos, and we've talked about it in previous All Things SOPPA conversations. So make sure you're I guess we share this just to be knowing that collectively we're making progress towards things. There's a lot of schools out there that aren't using this database that are also making progress towards their SOPPA compliance. But I think just looking at this database, you can see that we've made a lot of progress by collaborating and working together within this database to make things happen. I mentioned the originating agreements. So the originating agreements that are in the system, and I think I may have my dates off here. I'm not remembering if I put them in there right, but as of last week, these were some originating agreements that are in the system, and I mainly share these just so that there's like a snapshot of things for you to see and look at, and just kind of see if there's applications that you're using, maybe things you haven't thought about that you are using, talking to your teachers, and maybe something that you can share list like this with your teachers to say, hey, are you using any of these applications through their curriculum and what they're doing. So as we look at the other agreements that are here, so this was last week's and this is this week's, just looking at different things, and it seems to every once in a while, things that have been in the database show up again as the latest originating agreements. That's because of a date or something, the way my algorithm brings them to the top again. So they may already be there and you've already signed them, but there may be a new one or somebody uploaded it with a new expiration date or something like that. So something to check out and look at. I put this slide in the slideshow as a resource and to show what people are using for their data privacy pages. And this is kind of the end result of the work that you've been doing towards getting these data privacy agreements. So you just kind of talk about all the data privacy stuff, and that's good because it's not just about SOPPA, it's about the other stuff as well. But through the database, what you're able to do is ultimately you will have a link that's personal to your or individual to your school district, and it will list out the applications that you have within your district, the agreements that you have, the approval dates, the data elements, the subject, the grade levels, and the subject areas that those agreements are in. And you'll see the total number of agreements that you have and be able to put this link on your web page and have that available to your community, to your teachers, to all those things. And so there's a few examples there. If you look at all three of those examples, you'll see that a lot of it's the same information, just organized in different ways based on how they've done their websites, but they all have a link to their data privacy agreements and how they're doing it. So it's a good way to see those types of things. And if you come across other good examples, feel free to email me those and I can share those as well to people so people can see those. Just something that I have been covering on a regular basis, just because there is so much activity in the database, understanding what it is that you're looking at and what you're seeing when you're looking at the database. So there's really three different categories of agreements that you can be uploading as. You can be uploading an originating agreement. The originating agreement is you've used the Illinois NDPA, you've sent that agreement to a vendor, the vendor's filled out that agreement, and they've signed the Exhibit E, allowing for all other school districts to then subscribe or piggyback to that agreement. And then the originating school district then will upload that full agreement. They'll supply the email address where the Exhibit E should go, and then they'll upload the one-page Exhibit E document so that when subscribing school districts click on the sign Exhibit E, it will sign the bottom of that Exhibit E and then email it out. So that's one agreement. That's what we're that's the kind of the gold standard of what we're trying to accomplish with this, because once we get an originating agreement that's in a quality setup, then other school districts can then sign on to that agreement and benefit from that work as well. So the subscribing using the auto exhibit creator, and I've got links to both the how-to videos for these different processes, but the auto exhibit creator is there for you to electronically sign through the STPC database, the exhibit that's uploaded by the originating district, and then email that exhibit out to the vendor so that they have that in their possession. And then ultimately, both of these processes upload those agreements into your database, into your website, so that you can share that with your community. And then the standalone agreement, just meaning that there is no exhibit E. That agreement could be a Illinois NDPA agreement. It's just that the vendor didn't sign the exhibit E. So you have to actually interact with the vendor and have them sign a copy that is specific to you. Or it could also be a one-off agreement like a Khan Academy type of agreement that is there, that you would have to communicate with Khan Academy to get their agreement, and then sign that, and then upload that into the database as well. So originating, subscribing, and then some type of standalone agreement, whether it's with a Illinois NDPA or with another type of agreement. And then this checklist is just available to you just as a way to, whether you're the originating school district or you're a subscribing school district, just looking at agreements, especially the Illinois NDPA agreements, because they're all they should be pretty much the same, whether they're originating or subscribing or standalone. And so you should be able to use this database to, or this checklist, sorry, to make sure that you're uploading a good agreement, or you're signing on to a good agreement that's in the database. And then down here below, they're not really any less important just because they're at the bottom of the list, but making sure that you're using correct file naming, using maybe dashes or underscores, but trying to limit the periods and the other punctuation spaces, hash tags, and different things within your file names will make things work a lot better. And then also being aware of the size of your files that you're uploading, and making sure that they're an appropriate size and may need to be compressed if they're too big. As we continue to utilize this system, I think it's going to be important that we're all kind of trying to figure out ways of making it better. So hopefully as you're coming across things that you're doing that you think there might be a better way of doing it, please share those ideas with the SDPC. The SDPC is the Student Data Privacy Consortium. They are a national organization with currently, I think, 33 alliances that are participating with this database and with the National Data Privacy Agreement. So any input that we have as a state that'll help our schools, but also help schools around the country with organizing these data privacy agreements, and just the idea of a database like this. Well, anything we can do to make it better is important, and they're going through that process right now. It's going to be an ongoing process, but make sure you're sharing those ideas with them. The resources that are available to you, to all school districts in Illinois, through the Learning Technology Center, are on this page, and through this page. So you'll find navigation to the ISPA STPC database. So to be able to organize and upload and change your agreements. There's YouTube playlists that are available to you that have tutorials and how to use the database, and also the previous all things SOPPA conversations that we've had. There's some PDF documents that are in the resources location in the middle of the page for just organizing your thought process around what it is that we're doing with agreements, and how we're going through the process of getting those into the database. Then there's a section for the National Data Privacy Agreement and the blank agreement that you can use to send to vendors. There's some sample communication also on that in that area that you could cut and paste into an email when you're communicating with the vendor. So just some different things in that checklist that I shared with you earlier is there. And then the upcoming list on the right-hand side of the, on the right-hand side of the web page, you'll see all the upcoming all things SOPPA, and then we'll be figuring out how to also continue this process, what people need and what we need to keep doing and talking about as far as moving into the school year and what's going to be needed to help people. So within this database, or within this resources page, this is just an example of the 2-page getting started PDF document. It's got some acronyms that I've been throwing around already, but just some checklists of things to do to get the process started. And if you've gone through this checklist and you still have questions, that'd be an opportunity for you to reach out to me and schedule a time on my calendar, and we can help you figure out exactly where to get started and what to do. And then this playlist is using the tools, the database tools to get started. And Sean Mullins is an instructional technology director at Olympia School District, and he helped us make these videos, and they're very well done and very helpful in the process, and something you can just kind of start the playlist and work through them, and it'll help you look at those things. The section on the State Board of Education site, there's a couple different things there now. One, well, they're all kind of incorporated into the same thing, but they worked it out with the Illinois Association of School Boards, the press policy that the IASB puts together in policy 7345. They have all kinds of administrative procedures and exhibits in there to help with the SOPPA process. And then they've recently added the parent rights information there so that parents can know what it is that they can ask for and the process for that to work through. So that's available now through your press policies. So it's something you can look forward in your press policies. And if you are not a subscriber to press, you can still access these documents by emailing the link here in the middle. It should take you to an email address for somebody at IASB that you can request those. But if you're a subscriber, you can get them through your portal. Also, this is available on our resources website, but this is just a presentation we did back in March. It seems like it was not that long ago, but 4 months has gone by pretty fast. So check out that slide deck. Also, you can see the recording of the presentation that Brian did, talking about what it is that what the impact on teachers is. And then as we, the LTC and my department that I work in, we actually do things other than SOPPA. There are, and I know you guys are all aware that technology is not all about SOPPA. So one of the things that we do is a Be Connected series, and during the summer we're doing it every other week, but coming up tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be talking with a NetRef representative. They're going to be talking to us about their bandwidth reporting functionality that they're rolling out for school districts to use. And then at the end of the month, we're going to talk about utilizing the Have I Been Pwned website to help you be more aware of what's happening with your district email accounts and where they're at as far as the data files that have been released by those hackers and people that have collected files from different hacking incidents. And then, as always, there's always events that are going on through the LTC, whether it's for teachers, whether it's for admin, academies, tech people. So check out our calendar and be sure to look for that kind of thing. Kind of some exciting news for cybersecurity is we're looking for a cybersecurity specialist to join our team to help school districts begin to look at what they're doing in regards to cybersecurity and protecting not only the data that's within their organization, but also thinking about the data privacy agreements and what it is that we're doing outside of our environment too. So that's something that we're looking for. So if you know that of somebody that's a good people person and also has a good sense of cybersecurity tools and resources and what's necessary for schools, then definitely pass along that information to them. And there's also other employment opportunities within the LTC as well. So check out that link to get that information. So several weeks ago, probably a couple months ago now, I started including updates about Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Adobe. And as I switched through the slideshow and passed through the Slido question and answer, that question was already on there, and I appreciate people asking that question, and that's why I put this in here too. And really, at this point, I don't have any more update than what I had 2 weeks ago. Although I know that Google is talking to specifically Robin Swartz, I think they've also had conversations with the Illinois Association of School Boards attorney group, the school attorneys working group for SOPPA. So I know that that is taking place. Microsoft, Apple, and Adobe, and I think Zoom should probably be included in some of this. Those are, I don't have any like specific that there's an agreement pending or here's the mechanism to do it. But I feel like we're getting into crunch time and that we will start to see those types of things happening where we can start communicating those out and hopefully having those on a weekly basis, just kind of being able to share those with people. And I'll be sure to send those out through email and in different ways as well. I have sent out a couple different emails through the SDPC email functionality, and hopefully you're getting those as district admins. Those will go to you. So if you are part of a group that uses the SDPC database and you're not the first person that signed on to the system and got the account set up, if you're using the system, make sure you're talking as a team who has accounts and make sure that they're sharing that information with you as a team within what's being sent out through the SDPC portal as well. So really no big announcements at this point. Hopefully we can start doing that, and that'll be exciting as signing a DPA can be, I guess. So beyond these sessions, definitely ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's kind of the key to technology, is being able to ask questions and knowing where to find the answers. So reviewing the resources, connecting with other people that are doing similar things, connecting with your other similar school districts in your area, connecting with your ROEs, your other people that may be doing these uploading data privacy agreements and working through some of these things. We all may be working in different systems too. That's something that we need to get more collaborative about, to make sure that if somebody's using like an ed privacy or a learn platform and they're getting agreements with vendors, that even if they're not in the SDPC, if there's some way that we can coordinate that and work towards at least knowing that they have agreements, that would be beneficial as well. So if there's somebody out there that knows of big things happening or big agreements that people have been concerned about, like, it's exciting that we have 1,000 originating agreements in there, but when it comes down to it, there may be a handful that we're still trying to get and trying to figure out, do we have these or do we not have these? And so definitely communicating with others and connecting with others will be helpful with that. And then every Tuesday, we'll plan on coming back and coordinating these all things SOPPA sessions so that you can ask questions, share experiences, and work through your comments. So no big announcement for Google at this point.
Chris, do you anticipate that there'll be any sort of information from them prior to school starting?
I feel like there's stuff going on. I do feel like there will be something before school starts, but I don't have any specifics on that. But I do feel like they are working towards a solution to make things happen. So maybe that's naivety on my part, but I do feel like there's things happening.
If I could interject, I have been informed by the lawyer that Google won't work with people unless they're within that lawyer group. And so my school district had to sign something that said, yes, we are going to be, this lawyer group is representing us in order for it to move forward. And that was last week.
Okay. All right. I'll see if I can get more information about that and be able to talk more about that next week. Thanks, Gayla. I don't know why it keeps bouncing into that screen. I know there's been people talking about Zoom. Is anyone working on Zoom communication? I think there's differing viewpoints on what Zoom is and what you need to do with Zoom. Some groups are saying that it's not necessarily something that needs to be signed because they're a general audience application. They're not totally K-12 focused, but then I also feel like when you get special pricing and are doing Zoom for education and stuff like that, that kind of changes that. So definitely check with your lawyer and check with what they're doing. Check with other schools around your area, what they're doing. I'm not sure that they're specifically, I guess I haven't done a search in the database to see what's specifically in there for Zoom, but that's something we can definitely continue to follow and communicate out to people. Any advice on the website requirements, such as how to deal with parent requests for data? And then I saw, has ISBE outlined a parent request will look like and how we should respond? So those two questions, if you look at the in the slideshow with the ISBE update, and then also check out the ISBE website about SOPPA. The communications are there. I don't have any specifics on how you're going to deal with that from a school district standpoint, or if it's just a form that you're going to have them fill out. In some ways, it's going to be similar to FOIA and some of those types of things. Like you're going to have to develop processes, and that's something that we can share through what we're doing here on a weekly basis. If people start developing those processes for what they're going to do with parents, that's something that we can start sharing out through this. So definitely take a look at those ISBE resources about the parent stuff. And if you do have further questions, you can reach out to me. One requirement is posting on the website the student data we collect. Is that a separate document or last column of the DPA? So I think there's, at this point, I think having the data privacy agreement and having those things in your, the data elements in your data privacy agreement is step number one. If you take that next step and put those data elements, list those in the database, I think moving forward, that's going to be helpful from a standpoint of what it does for you as a district to be able to tie those data elements to your the applications you're using and what and having those in a database is going to be beneficial. So I would kind of look to be doing both. marking them in the database, but also I think having them in your data privacy agreements initially is going to be step number one. So, but I feel like if you take that next step and actually collect that data and put that in your database, I think there's some reporting things you're going to be able to do later on that will be beneficial. So definitely, if you're not planning to do that right now, definitely plan on finding a way to get that information in there. Because I think other people have looked at and shared resources that they're utilizing where a couple years ago at our Secure Ed school presentation, we had some examples of what like Jefferson County in Colorado is doing, where they actually listed out all their data elements and what applications they were in and what they were using and those types of things. And I think it would be helpful to do some of those things, but I don't think that's a priority, and I don't think it's necessarily something that is going to be a requirement of some of this stuff, but I think in the long run it will be beneficial. And we can work through ways of developing those types of things as we go. Khan Academy indicated an agreement exists to piggyback off of with the Exhibit E, but in the Exhibit E, the agreement does not come up. Not that I'm aware of at this point. It's something I can look into, but everything I've seen in the database with regards to Khan Academy is their own agreement. So if we search for Khan Academy, they may be listed with an this is a new agreement, so let's just look at what this is. So in order to be a, oh, looky there, Khan Academy has an agreement. And if we scroll down through, there's Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C is the definitions, D is the data. There's a signed Exhibit E right there. But if you already have an agreement in your database for Khan Academy, and you go to the Auto Exhibit E creator, it will not appear because you already have an agreement for them. So if you want to sign on to the Exhibit E and you already have an agreement within your managed agreements, you would have to delete that first in order to be able to use the Exhibit E creator to see it and to sign on to it. Hopefully that makes sense.
Chris, I was the one that sent that.
Okay.
I actually tried the Exhibit E creator. I don't have a current agreement with them, and it was unavailable. Lombard, it wasn't coming up in the Auto Exhibit E creator.
Okay, let's see. Let me close down some of my windows. All right, this is the Auto Exhibit E creator, and if I search for Khan Academy, why don't you send me an email and I can troubleshoot what exactly, maybe there's something else hanging out there as far as an agreement that's keeping it from showing up in your Auto Exhibit E creator. So let me know and I will check that out, but it should be there. So if it's not, there's something else that's kind of keeping that from happening. So that is there, and that's kind of why we do these updates on a weekly basis, because that would have been something that would have been there last week had we had a conversation, but and I'm glad we didn't skip that. So Khan Academy does have a Exhibit E in the system now, so you can sign on to the Exhibit E through that. Otherwise, it was always an agreement that was available through just with Khan Academy. You had to get the agreement from them, so that's good. And that might be some email that I send out early next week or as an update. Really no update on Microsoft. I mean, I kind of glanced over that in the update earlier, but that's something I need to be more proactive about. Is there a way to enter or save a list of vendor subcontractors on SDPC? At this point, there is not specifically a subcontractors field, but it is something that we're working with them to try to get. Some people are saving that in the purpose field um, for future reference, and then it's something that we will have to address as we continue to move on with this process. So currently, not really any specific way to do it. It's just kind of throw it in the database and or keep track of it outside the database. And if somebody asks for that information, you have it. And I know that's not ideal, but rather than forcing it in somewhere in the database and then having to change it at some point, we'll have to do that. I've emailed about an error message when trying to upload a document. What is the best way to follow up on the status of getting the error resolved? Obviously, it's something that specifically what I need to troubleshoot information is I need the application that you're trying to do, what school it is, and if it's something that you're trying to upload as an agreement. If it's something that you can email me, I can look at it and see if it's the size issue or if there's some other issue going on. It's file name, too many spaces, or a dot in the name, or it's not a PDF document or something like that. But those are things I can troubleshoot if I have enough information, just like any tech request that you get. Similar, if you get a tech request that your computer's not working, that their computer's not working, it's going to be hard to troubleshoot. So definitely more information. If it's something that we can troubleshoot in a 15-minute call, sometimes that's easier rather than bouncing back and forth through emails and those stuff like that. So my calendar is pretty open for next week. So if you do have a question and we can get that resolved through that, I'd be glad to do that. What was the process for GoGuardian? I remember you mentioning it last webinar. Okay, so GoGuardian is an example of GoGuardian does not want to sign a, so these two are uploaded as originating agreements. They're actually erroneously marked as originating, so they shouldn't be. But if you look at these agreements, they are using the Illinois NDPA format. They're an agreement between the school district and the GoGuardian. But if you look down at the check boxes here, they did not check Exhibit E here, which is an indicator that they probably don't have an Exhibit E, but let's just look down here and see. But the Exhibit E is not signed. So their GoGuardian is saying, we're not going to allow people to piggyback on this agreement. But if you reach out to GoGuardian, and you can get clues from the data privacy agreement on who to reach out to by going to this page, and that's not going to help you. But ultimately, GoGuardian, if somebody's on the call that has done this process, and if they have an email or if they know of somebody that they've reached out to at GoGuardian, but I'm assuming that their sales reps and people have been taught how to get this to the right place. But ultimately what they're going to do is send you this document for you to fill out the information and sign for your school district. And you're just going to upload the full agreement as not as a originating agreement, not as a subscribing agreement, just as a vendor specific using the data privacy, the standard or the agreement as that agreement. So you would go to, and let me open up a new link so I don't lose my database here. So you would have a new agreement. And in this case, it would be a national vendor specific agreement because it does have an Exhibit H. So you would use this one to upload that particular agreement. It's based off the national agreement, but it's got an Exhibit H, so we're going to use this one. Previously, when we were uploading Khan Academy, when before it was in the database as an originating agreement, we were just uploading that as an other agreement because it wasn't based on the Illinois NDPA in any way, so it doesn't really count towards any of these agreements. Hopefully that answered your question. Is it necessary for Exhibit B to have boxes of data also used? Checked. I also came across one that no student data is collected was checked. So yeah, I feel like there should be a checkbox that's used, either the checkboxes that are used to show the data that's used, or the one that says no student data collected. That's a way for a vendor to say, we're willing to look at this data privacy agreement, work with this data privacy agreement, but we're not really collecting any student data. So ultimately, there's not a whole lot here that is going to be relevant to us. But it's a way for them to say, we're not collecting any data. We're not going to be, there's not going to be any data breach into our system, and your PII is going to be affected because we're not collecting any of that stuff. So them taking the step to fill out a data privacy agreement, sign that, go through the work of it, and using that checkbox for no student data collected is a benefit to them because it's in the database as an agreement, and start it's in the database and you can see what's there for that particular vendor. Whereas if you don't have an agreement and it's not there, then everybody's going to have to keep contacting them to let them know. So it's a huge benefit to the vendor, and it's a huge benefit to all the other schools that would be looking into the database to see if there's an agreement available. I'm drinking spring water, and you can definitely tell the difference between spring water and drinking water. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, should we all start contacting Apple, Google, Adobe so they have a better idea of impact? I mean, ultimately, that's definitely something that would create some impact and something going on. Is that going to do anything to benefit or move forward the cause? I don't really know. If it was, I mean, I don't know what. One thing is, we need to ultimately find, specifically with Google. I know Google is talking to legal, and they're in that process. And as Gayla shared, being part of that IASB group is helpful. And I think we need to get more communication about what that means. And if there's more information about that to share, I'll try to get that for next Tuesday to make sure we have that information. So definitely want to, we want to go about this in trying to get that agreement. And so, I mean, if somebody wants to organize that and do that, I mean, that's totally up to school districts on whether or not they do that or not, and what benefit that would have. I'm not sure. Please look at the agreement resource. Power School, Schoology Learning, originating LEA is Killdeer. The attached agreement is Pearson. All right, let's just look at that real quick. So if I look at Power School, and I look at this agreement, yep, that's just uploaded incorrectly, and something we need to look at and see what that's about. So definitely something I can take a look at and communicate with, and that's Killdeer. And if you look at that agreement, it's actually Township High School. So something's happened there where they've uploaded that agreement. And we can
Chris,
figure
what
out.
is the best one? I noticed Schoology was on the list for the 13th. What What one should we be looking at?
I don't know that I know the answer to that totally, but let's just search the database for Schoology. Is Schoology a Power School
It is.
Power School? I know Power School.
Power School did have them all grouped together in one contract or one
Yep.
agreement, like a month ago.
Yep.
And you were gonna try to see how you divided it up, because we just have Schoology.
Westchester. Oops. Lost my. Sorry. It seems like, why am I not seeing? All right, Community School District 300 and Power School. So this is the ideal one. The 300 is the one that lists out everything and has an Exhibit E. The way to break it out, the best way currently to do this is if you look at this agreement that is in here for Power School, what they've done is they listed out agreements for all of their products. So Schoology, the special education product, the unified classroom. So they've listed all those in Exhibit A. And then in the Exhibit B, they listed out all the data elements for each of those products. And so when you sign the Exhibit E, you're ultimately signing on to all those things. My suggestion currently is to include that information in your power or your purpose, that when you go through this process and when you get to purpose, put in that you're only using the Schoology LMS portion of this agreement. That's the way that Power School wanted to list their agreement, in the sense that they wanted to have all of them there. Some products, some vendors have chosen that they want their products listed individually in the database. So they've filled out, like, I think it's Nearpod and Vocabulary are both owned by Nearpod, but they want those two agreements as separate agreements in the database. So that's why you'll see them twice. Whereas Power School just wanted the one, and they wanted people to subscribe, and then they would know what products they had and all those types of things. But for listing it on your database, then it just ultimately means that you have to tell people what products you're using. So at this point, the easiest way to do it is just to update the purpose field to say, and that'll show up on your public facing site under Schoology or under Power School Naviance. It'll show Schoology, and when somebody searched the database for, or search that public listing for Schoology, they would find that in your database. And if that's something, we can take that offline too, if there's something there that's more specific to a question there. Needs more specific answer. So that, yeah, so the agreement that Power School has is they've uploaded that originating agreement with all the stuff listed, and that's how they kind of wanted that. But obviously then it requires you to list on your listing for Power School what pieces of that you're using. We use EdPrivacy and have been adding originating agreements to the ISBE database as well. Great. Yeah, so EdPrivacy is a beneficial tool to help getting agreements, and then but it doesn't tie directly back into ISBA. So those schools that are using EdPrivacy, thank you for getting originating agreements and then for taking the extra time to upload those into the database, because it's not going to happen automatically. It does take work to do that, and so we appreciate that, and other schools appreciate that as well. If I change the agreement type to in use no agreement, the status column doesn't show anything. If I change the status, is there a way to fix that? I don't know the answer to that question right offhand. I will look at that and see if you're specifically asking that question. Email me and I'll look into that specifically. And if you can share with me the example that you're trying to do it with, I can try that out and test that out. I have a vendor that does not want to sign the NDPA. I can list this vendor to my resource list, but where can I put their comments? You can put your comments in the purpose. You can also, I think, put them in agreement restrictions. Or if you wanted to, you could upload it as an other agreement and then have a PDF file that has that information in there, so that it's just a cleaner way of doing it. That it would be in use no agreement, but then when you upload it, actually attach a PDF file that has what you want to say about how you're listing that vendor, and specifically that way you have more control over the format and those types of things if you wanted to list it out in a specific way. So that would be just go into add a new agreement. And when you do that, if you go to add new agreement, yes, I have a signed contract. That's kind of counterintuitive, but other type of agreement, just select the resource that you want, change it to, so that's the resource, change it to in use no agreement, and then upload a signed agreement, and that's where you could upload that PDF file. Ultimately, you could put it in account or even in purpose when you get to that step. So that would be a couple different ways of putting that information in the database. All right, I'm gonna flip over to the chat. Hopefully people, that interaction has been working there. I will download the chat, obviously, since I haven't been watching that, and check that out. I will try to get this uploaded later this week. If there are other questions, I'll stick around for a few minutes. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to fishing, and I'm not going to do any skiing, but my kids might enter too. All right. Thanks, everybody.
I have a quick question that you might have already done. Are these recordings somewhere that I could watch this in?
Yep. So if you go into the All Things SOPPA slideshow, on the first page of the slideshow, the YouTube playlist for the All Things SOPPA sections are here. And then if you go to the resource page, which is the ISPA website, they're also listed there.
Okay, great. I just started in this position on the first, and so this is my first one. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, so all those resources in that slideshow are all available here on this website. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out and connect with me next week when I'm back in the office. All right, thanks everybody. Good seeing y'all. Have a good week.